So today I have Mark Carter. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. I'm very excited about this because we're going to talk about something that's a subject matter that's a really big subject matter to me, and something I've kind of sought out a little bit of some blind corners around, and that's mentorship.
Yes.
And, I think that there's so much, lack of better terms, noise out there, or potentially even misconceptions about mentorship. And I've sought out or tried to seek out, mentoring specifically or coaching and go in these directions. And I personally have not found that fit. But I might have actually maybe I even had those misconceptions, or I maybe approached it even incorrectly too.
Okay.
And I never really kind of went there. But if we could start kind of tell us your involvement in this arena right now.
Well, right now, actually, to go back to the beginning, 2 weeks before I graduated college, I read a self-help book and said, I want to do something with coaching. I don't want to be in corporate America. I want to be out on my own.
Nice.
I want to be helping people, coaching, consulting, speaking, something like that. And I didn't call it mentorship at the time. I didn't read a book on it, but in my DNA, I sought out mentors. I just didn't call them that at the time. I found people who were successful in their own career. Everyone from my first two interviews were the head coach of University of Michigan's basketball team and a Grammy Award-winning musician.
Oh my gosh.
And I would talk to them about how did they do it. And over the years, I constantly was seeking people out to see how they got successful. And about 5 years ago, I realized I have a case study, not knowing where I'd end up teaching it.
Right.
I had a case study. When I look back at my notes, and I still have my first notebook from 1999 and with the interviews in it, and looked at it and realized almost every single person I interviewed, the common thread was mentoring and collaboration.
Because you do hear that so much. Anybody who's been kind of reached a level of success in any environment, they do always talk about coaching, mastermind, mentoring, and how essential it is to help guide or accelerate certain aspects of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think we all seek out, advice, and many times people seek it from their sphere of influence, which these people are not, unless your uncle is Bill Gates or something like that. I don't, but I think that, pause 1 sec. Sorry. I had a good question and I lost it. Damn it. I haven't done that in a long time. All right. So, God, I completely brain farted. I completely blanked just now. So we were talking about mentoring, and we're talking about, unless you have this, to going after that certain level of success. Oh my gosh, this is the craziest thing. I've completely had writer's block. I completely had blocks. I completely blanked. So what I'll do too, let me come back to asking you about, I'll come back to kind of asking you a little, can I ask you a little bit about that past of this, where you originated with these mentors and seeking them out and stuff? So, okay, cool. I really wanted that question. Damn it. Okay. It'll come out. So, I would like to actually kind of, go back to what you said with these original interviews. That's amazing. And is that around 99 you said?
1999 was when I started.
Okay. So pre-YouTube, pre-video. So were these just articles you had written, or were they radio, or was it?
It was originally just for me.
Oh, you just did a private?
Because I didn't have a blog at that point in time.
Sure.
Anything. All I did was phone calls or coffee.
Okay.
And the biggest thing that I would do is every meeting I had to have an actionable idea. So not just how did you get a multi-platinum album, or how did you become CEO? It was an actionable idea that I could go and use in my own life.
Okay, so you were really seeking those insights for your personal growth in those regards. And at this point, you had mentioned writing a book. Is this prior to that?
That's current. No, that's currently.
That's current.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. So let's fast forward to now. You have developed a program. Is it fair to call it?
Program, process.
I like the word process. So you've developed a process of mentorship and people that can step in on this. Now, one aspect of mentoring that I did want to mention as well too was sometimes mentors not just give advice, but they also keep you on course of what to omit or what to stop doing. That's potentially waste of time, get you off track. And these are some of the accelerators that can also help us and guide us in the right direction. Because I think some of us set out on a course and we start steering the ship in a different direction that because we have no guidance or help with. So so you've been able to take all these interviews, all these interactions, these insights, and you've really been able to kind of develop this process. So now are you helping individuals or is it company oriented? What's the main kind of the main focus within that set?
My passion points right now are colleges and startups.
Okay,
because I think those are two types of people that really need the help.
Yeah,
and they have everything going for them. At the same, college students, when they're about to graduate, they have their whole life in front of them.
Yeah,
a startup, they could do anything. They're just getting the business going. So those are the two places that I focus on.
Do you kind of feel like that window is because you can highly influence that compared to maybe somebody who's very set in their ways, or is it? Is it kind of like inspired from when you started out?
Yes.
You just want to, okay. I love that. Yeah. So you started out and you're like, all right, where do I go in this big, bold world? And, but you, what's great about you too, is, I think that takes a level of courage to ask these people and mentors, especially at a younger age. I personally didn't really kind of seek out mentors until I was, a little older. And, those, and of course I stumbled along the way, far more than maybe I even needed to in certain environments. So with this process and, with the students, are you speaking at colleges? Are you doing any, type of talks with groups, or generally one-on-one? Do you have people approach you?
One university that we launched a mentoring program for, it was part of the class. They actually replaced the book with an online classroom about mentoring that I designed. Okay. So it was required coursework for them. And then I would also have one-on-one sessions, and I would also have group sessions. Another university out in New York, it was just left to the Career Center that anyone that came in could come into a monthly mastermind group. And they could ask any questions about mentors that they wanted to ask.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so do they actually build it around their specific what they're going for as far as degrees or career paths, or is it more built around this coaching environment, the coaching mindset, or the mentoring mindset? It's
the career path and finding mentors to help them improve their careers and shorten the learning curve.
Okay, and actually, do you teach them how to approach mentors within their environment too? I mean, are you taking it even a step further, mentoring them, and then also teaching them how to teach themselves of sorts?
Oh, absolutely. That's a part of it. They get assigned at the universities. One of them, they got assigned a mentor for the semester, and we did that for 4 semesters. And part of teaching them, though, is also teaching them how to reach out to other mentors.
Okay.
And how to duplicate the process again and again and again and again.
Okay. Now, over the last, say, 20 years of you doing this yourself, has that changed, or is there still like an old school mentality of just reaching out to somebody?
It's more refined.
Sure.
And I think when people are younger, the biggest thing I hear from college students, particularly in younger startups, is, well, I don't have anything to offer. How am I going to approach someone? What am I going to give them? And what they're missing, which I always tell them, is the younger you are, the more chances you have of finding a mentor. Because when you're a 20-year-old, wide-eyed kid trying to figure out life, CEOs, pick the title, pick the level of success, are much more likely to take you under their wing than when you're 40. Much more likely.
I've missed my window, huh? No, that actually makes a lot of sense. I can speak from personal experience too, that if somebody were to reach out to me and ask me, I'm in the commercial real estate environment, and if somebody were to ask me about that, I would be very happy to teach them and give them advice, or at least some starting points and some first steps. I think kind of inherently we like to help people, so you've been able to kind of take that to another level.
Yes.
And actually, okay. Is there another step to after these programs and after the school involvement too? Are there any other additional steps or involvements that you can take beyond the scope of that arena?
As far as
so if there's any, once they graduate, once they're in the field, have you built like a process and a program that actually is another step and built onto that?
Well, I have an open door policy as far as if they want to continue the conversations with me.
Okay.
Outside of that, once they get done, part of the training that with all the mentoring is teach a man to fish.
Okay.
That's the big part of it. So it really becomes up to them. They've learned the process. They know how to reach out to mentors. They know what to say, how to set up meetings, how to have an agenda, how to follow up.
Okay.
And then it becomes up to them to say, I'm going to keep doing this.
Okay. So how about this too? A little bit of maybe even some of that advice. And maybe I even selfishly am asking, but is it really to kind of stay very specific with what you're doing with the mentor or asking the mentor, or can they ask general knowledge questions about their career path? Because you mentioned giving advice to how to reach out to them, how to talk to these mentors to really be effective with their time. Obviously, if you're talking to a CEO, very limited time. So how to be efficient with that time? Are there some good kind of rules to go by?
Yeah, one thing is you always come with a specific problem.
Okay.
And it's usually not the surface level. Like with college students, I want a job. That's not the problem.
Right.
Why don't you have a job yet? It becomes I'm not good at networking is different than I don't have a polished resume is different than I'm not good at interviewing. It's what's the underlying factor. Come to them with one specific problem at hand and ask them about that. And the checklist for mentoring, it comes down to three things: advice, support, and connections.
Okay.
Every single mentoring experience has one of those three pieces of the puzzle involved. And that's what we teach them as a checklist. You don't just go in and say, Paul, tell me a story. Or how did you want it? Here's my problem, and I need advice, support, and or connections to help solve it. What can you share with me? Because sometimes with mentors, they might not, if it's networking and the person just has one of those people that always just based on their resume and their experience, they always got a job, but they never had to network. That's when the mentor has to say, well, this isn't my ball game, but let me refer you to my friend.
Okay. So yeah, understanding where those connection points are and actually building onto that.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. I guess too is that, those same students, do you ever give them advice to do general networking in that regards too, to approach the environment?
Yeah, that's one of the things I talk to classes about.
Okay.
When I talk to colleges, if I come in and, for an hour during a class as a guest speaker, that's one of the subject matters is networking.
Okay. And like in a general networking environment, like an open platform, or try to get specific with their industries, tell them to stay within their industry?
Open platform.
Open platform. Do you kind of have some of the advice you give them in that environment? Because I think there's so many people out there that go to the open platforms from all ages that don't know how to approach it. And they're actually either, I don't want to say intimidated by it, or feel like, oh, it's a waste of time. Nobody's here. My ideal client isn't here, or, nobody in my industry that I'm going after is here. So people have these limited thinking or limited beliefs behind it. Do you kind of tell them to kind of stay open and malleable in the environment, or what's some of the advice you give those?
Definitely be open, and a key factor is you never know who knows somebody. There's an incubator in Chicago that I was a mentor at for 3 years, and they would come to me for mentoring advice or marketing advice. And the startups themselves are not my clients.
Oh, okay.
Their investors could be, their mentors could be, their network could be. Right. So I made some phenomenal connections 2 degrees out. So It wasn't just that. So many people look at networking as, I'm going to go, and like you said, I want to meet my ideal client. Mm-hmm. And if I don't meet my ideal client, then it's a waste of time. As opposed to, I'm going to go to a place where I have the opportunity to meet people who know my ideal client. Referrals are always better.
Yeah.
Because the first time you meet someone, they're not going to open their wallet, take out a credit card, and pay you for something.
Right.
But if you can build a relationship and you can start getting I'd rather know one person that gives me 10 referrals than try and get 10 clients completely on my own.
That's great advice. Honestly, that is really good advice, because that's, I can't tell you how many times that comes up, because I'm a big advocate of networking, and oddly enough too, you and I ran into each other at a networking event recently, which I love. It's a very small environment to some degree, but that's great. So yeah, because I want to just stay in that networking environment just brief second, and because I think there's also too a sense of bringing value to the people you meet and helping them make connections. So you meet somebody who might be a couple steps away from your ideal client, but there is a concept of giving, and the more you give, the more you receive, that idea. So the more you go to these, the more I know that the more connections I make, I'm able to kind of bridge and be that referral partner for other people. And what happens is they, in turn, become a referral partner for me. So there is a cumulative building factor too, that maybe when people start out, and especially I'm sure at a younger age, that you can't see that. You don't have the foresight to see some of that in the environment. So, and then on another idea too, we were talking about is, I like the phrase that's, if I call it, fair to call it a phrase, but, or a term that you use, is the idea climbing. And I love that, just those two words together in a sense. It's going to sound funny, but it to me, it's kind of the idea building or the idea expansion where there's no limits to it. The idea climbing, I think even too, reminds me of, everybody knows 1 + 1 is 2, but there's the idea of 1 + 1 is 3 in the regards that I have an idea, you have an idea. Now together we can create a third idea.
Yes.
So I like that, but tell me a little bit more on that subject.
On that subject, it's building on each other's ideas. It's coming to the table saying, here's what I think I want to do. What would you do? And having two people collaborate together. So instead of just an idea exchange, it actually becomes a collaboration, whether it's a formal partnership, a mentorship, two people just exchanging ideas and building something they couldn't build alone. Yeah. That's what it really focuses on.
Are you helping to bring these people together?
I do a lot of virtual mastermind groups.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to, that's one thing as far as networking, to tie it into networking.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can do is, I learned from a good friend of mine. He's got together with one other person on the second Wednesday of each month. They would get together, and then they very informally, and he owns a web design company, and then he wants to know marketers because marketers can give him referrals for web designs. Okay. So what they did was very informally, it's not even a sign-up sheet, it's just an email list. They started inviting people. The second Wednesday of every month, here's where we're going to be. From 5:30 to 7:30.
In person?
In person.
Okay.
And left it open. And if you do something like that, you pick one person, you get together. The worst case scenario, you have two people, you have a meeting once a month for an hour, which is a good, idea exchange, whatever it might be. But when it develops, if you meet that person at a networking event, they could be your client, but you don't sell them right away, how do you get to know them? There's really nothing outside of let's look into business synergies and have that phone call or coffee meeting, and it's like,
or you just go in for the kill with your pitch or something like that, and then
exactly. Where if you meet them and you set up an in-person meeting or a virtual mastermind group, I'm constantly doing both of those. I can meet someone and say, I know I need to know you.
Right.
I don't know if I can sell you right now, and you didn't say you wanted to be sold, but hey. The second Wednesday of each month, I get together, and it's marketers, it's entrepreneurs, whatever it might be. I'd love to invite you, and then you can follow up with them and pull them into your circle of influence and start talking to them. And then when they do need your services, they're going to think of you. I also do virtual mastermind groups for entrepreneur groups. People that would not know me get to know me. Because I'm facilitating a mastermind group where bring a problem to the table and say, what do you need solved? Who do you need to know? Okay.
Do you do like a Zoom call?
Zoom call.
Okay. So then you have, and forgive me, I'm going to sound not technically inclined here, but how many people can you have on like a Zoom call?
You can have a lot. I keep it at 6 to 8.
Okay.
Usually around 6. Because if you figure
it's a video thing too?
It's a video thing.
Okay.
1 hour. If you keep it to around 6 people, each person gets cumulative 10 minutes to talk.
Okay.
But the key is facilitating it. When I facilitate it, and I've had great success, people getting great results from it, they get to know me.
Okay.
So then when someone needs like a business strategy session, a full day session, or they need coaching or consulting, they have an experience with me where they can refer me business.
Okay. And that makes sense too, because actually have somewhat curated or somewhat directed, I think, because I could also see that turning into a little bit of a melee where everybody's just kind of throwing ideas out there. So you really do need some structure built around it.
That's what I do is facilitate.
Okay.
So when people get success from the mastermind groups and I get to know them, they can refer me business, as opposed to if they just met me once, they don't know me.
Right.
They haven't had an experience. And they're probably not going to, reality is they're probably not going to refer me any business, as opposed to if they experience a mastermind group, they get results, they get connections, they get advice, they get support. They have a chance to say, hey, here's my experience with him. I think he might be able to help your business.
Okay. And then you really kind of curtail this to just you had mentioned a couple fields, but do you really open platform as far as different industry, different walks of life, or are you try to do some pairing in these regards.
With the virtual mastermind groups, it's like to stick to entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because a part of idea climbing, mentoring, and that is that you can go and you can do anything you want. If you work 9 to 5 in a cubicle with very set, rigid, strict.
Right.
There's no real reason to go chase an idea because you have a boss. You report to a boss. You work in a cubicle. You do A, B, and C, and you get to go home at 5. Where entrepreneurs can do anything they want.
Yeah.
So it's entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial people that have the best results from building on ideas with other people.
Yeah, because they're nimble in the marketplace. They're able to be versatile and pliable in those regards too. So in that same thing too, because I'm very curious about the mastermind. Because people want to be specific too. You always have to kind of retain some specificities of what. So does everybody kind of have that window of where they're trying to build their field and the building on ideas in that regard, or do you come up with a conceptual proposal in the process?
What do you mean?
So I mean, if you have 8 people on there, are we? Say I was on the call. Are we going to talk about everybody goes around and does not an elevator pitch, but they do what they're working on or what their idea is for advancement in an environment? Sorry if I want to understand it.
Yeah, what they do generally, it's what do you do in 1 or 2 sentences, and then what I lead with is what do you do and why do you do it, which gets them telling stories. That's as a facilitator. That's what my job is to get them to tell stories, so other people can have light bulb moments of you should talk to my friend, and then it's what are you working on right now and what challenges are you facing.
Okay,
and that's that's the segue to mentorship. It's that I need to increase my sales. Hey, who in this group knows someone who's a phenomenal salesperson? Right. Can you enter? And that's where that second degree of connections come in. Okay. And it might not be me, but my friend's the top salesman at such and such. Right. And I can introduce you to him. Or my friend's a CEO and she did it by selling her product phenomenally well. Let me get you on a phone call, even if it's just 20 minutes. And that's a big thing with mentoring that I tell people is don't ask the first time you meet someone, don't necessarily ask for a coffee meeting. Face-to-face is good. Yes. It also takes time. Right. Even if you live and work downtown, you still have to walk to the place. You have to sit down. In-person meetings start with, talking about the weather and everything else. And so you're asking for about an hour and a half of time, as opposed to if you meet somebody and you want their advice, here's the problem I'm facing. It sounds like you've solved this problem. Can I set up a phone call with you, even if it's just 20 minutes? Okay. Most people can say, call me at Friday at noon. And it's absolutely. A huge difference than can we have coffee, because then they have to look at their schedule and they got to figure travel. 20-minute phone call. Yeah, I have definitely had that. I've done a lot of coffee meetings of even people that are maybe not directly clients, but the building that it does. It's a very big commitment, and you could do it all week long. But then you also have to work. You have to pay the bills. Yeah, you have to pay the bills. So, and I love that idea too, because I was actually just at a lunch networking. We broke into small groups, and they did do something like that in that regard too. And what came up at our table was I'll just kind of colorfully define it is that clients in the sales process can be watery, where they're not committing to certain benchmarks, and but what we kind of went through is really trying to create processes around the sales process, or at minimum kind of have our own thresholds or our own benchmarks that if they're not met by this client, maybe they're not the client that we need to continue to dedicate the time to. Mm-hmm. So I think those types of environments that you're talking about can be massively helpful. And again, too, it really ties in. It's kind of a communal mentorship in that sense. There's a think tank of advice to help accelerate and shorten those windows of us spinning our wheels. Mm-hmm. So, and I guess too, is that something that somebody can get a hold of you now? And are you have enough openings to have people get into that Zoom call, or is that limited? I do it informally. I do it with I call it BYO audience, bring your own audience. Okay. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll go to one place is the Founder Institute. A good friend of mine runs it, and it's an accelerator for startups. Sure. So I go to him and say, Merry Christmas. I'll donate my time if you'll send this out to your list and market it. Okay. So I don't have to find people one person at a time, and he just sends it out, and then people come and get to know me. So I get that. I've also done it on LinkedIn where I narrowed my network down to Chicago individuals that are in Chicago and are entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And I would look up like a title like founder in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is it takes some time. But when I did that, I would just send them a private message. I would cut and paste. It would be like, hey, Paul, but then it would be a paste. If I knew you, it was fun. I loved being on your podcast.
Sure.
Just want to let you know I'm having a mastermind group. Here's the date. Here's a link.
Okay.
If you'd like to sign up, and I do a free form on Eventbrite. And that's one way that I keep in touch with my LinkedIn network and keep me top of mind with them.
Okay.
Is every once in a while, just message all the founders in Chicago.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Do you ever try to curate it in the sense of keeping people in different fields together? Because it's a lot of people. I would imagine. Do you get a big influx? I would almost think you'd get a big influx of people who would want to be part of this.
I get a good response from it. And then I have an Excel spreadsheet where I keep their names, and I'm for LinkedIn, so I can just go back and say, sorry you couldn't make it last month.
Yeah.
Or whatever
okay. So
it was.
yeah, you're really. I love it. You're very dedicated to pulling this together. Okay.
And that's how I stay top of mind with people. If all they hear from me is, because so many people, like every 6 months, like in real estate.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone that wants to buy a house? Which I get. Anyone that wants to buy a building or lease something.
Yeah.
It's good. It keeps your name out there. But when an invite comes in with, hey, I'm running a mastermind group to help people solve problems and make new connections, that makes me look a lot better than just, hey, do you know anyone that wants to buy the full day strategy session? It's, hey, let me give you something.
Right.
So the last point of contact with them, even if they say no, was me reaching out and providing value.
Okay.
Which
so that's
speaks,
amazing.
Which speaks volumes as opposed to what he wants another client.
Right.
It's like they look forward to hearing from me.
Absolutely. Because that is a way of giving. You're giving them huge value of insights or help. And I mean, you just can't, you can't even replace that. I mean, that's not.
It's good branding.
Huge branding. I think from a, just from a marketing perspective or a business perspective, I do know that some businesses try to do things like that, but some of them don't really work. Some of them just kind of fall flat. Or even I get so many meetup, invitations or different groups that are kind of happening, and I see some of them kind of start and fuddle. I think, in that environment too, do you know why, or do you have an insight on why some of those don't work? Is it inconsistency, or is it they're not bringing intrinsic value to the environment?
It's intrinsic value.
Yeah.
When the meetups don't work, it's because someone just says they get a 2-hour time slot at a bar and they say show up. Even the ones that make it tend not to be valuable. Some of the ones that scare me the most, that is their marketing is, we're going to have 300 people from 26 industries. It's like half of them are there to drink.
Yes.
An hour into the event, half the room is drunk, and then it turns into a meat market or whatever else. There's no focus. There's no why am I showing up. When I would run my own networking events, one group was a Young Entrepreneur Alliance. So you came to solve problems. The speaker, there was no PowerPoint. Okay. It was a whiteboard.
Yeah.
They said, here's what I did in my business. Here's what worked. Here's what failed. Let me teach you and give you specific objectives and specific action items. So every meeting, people would walk out with at least one thing they could do differently with their business.
That's amazing.
Another group was Networking for a Cause, which was more free form. It was that 2 hour, 6 to 8 p.m.
Sure.
But what it was young professionals that want to volunteer. If you want to volunteer and do what you love, like if you want to get experience with marketing or you're good at marketing, come and tell people, I want to get involved with a nonprofit who needs help with marketing. Not volunteering like, sweeping out cages at the Humane Society,
right.
which is good. People need to do it.
Yeah.
But it was very focused that if you walked into Networking for a Cause, you were either a nonprofit looking for help or a young professional looking to volunteer.
Okay.
And that was the focus of, even though it was a room with 100 to 150 people in it, the conversation started based on that. Here's why I'm here. Right. I love marketing and I want to help someone with marketing. Do you know a nonprofit that needs help with marketing? As opposed to 100 to 150 people in a room with no focus. Yeah. You're just going to have the small talk, the regular conversations. You don't really know why you're there, why you're meeting somebody. It's adding that focus of, I know why I'm walking in this room to go to this event. Yeah, and actually have it really, because then, I don't want to say payoff, but there really is a value to yourself as there's a payoff for the time. Because I can't tell you how many times where over the years of going to networking events, I'm kind of in the car parked. I'm like, am I doing the right thing here with going to these things? And you kind of question it, and you're like a little bit, it's a little daunting, but I guess on the other end, I fully agree with you. And I was going to say is on the other end, sometimes
I have met some great people, but it's a little bit more, I guess, random in that sense. There's not really a formulated plan around it. And the only other time I'd say that some of the big ones worked for me is if I invited people that, I didn't want to have, instead of having a dedicated hour and a half coffee with, I am able to go there and have 5 minutes of conversation with them and kind of go on with the night. So there is something on that other end, but it isn't really, that's not really the most, the best usage of my time in a sense too. So what you're doing and having it either facilitated or curated and focused is true effective networking.
That's where the two things, there's three ways I think to pull people into your network and get to know them.
Yeah.
And that the virtual mastermind groups, you can do it from your home office.
Yeah.
I mean, just, point the camera where there's something decent in the back, a bookshelf, whatever it might be, a backdrop. And then that's where the other in-person meetings, what you just said about, I don't have time to dedicate an hour to somebody.
Right.
Because we don't really know if there's a reason to do business, but if you have those 20-ish person events where you're just like, hey, we're going to be the second Tuesday of every month. Here's the bar, 5:30 to 7:30. Show up if you want to. You get to have 5-10 different conversations in an hour and a half, 2 hours,
right,
as opposed to 10 hours of coffee meetings where you don't really know, and you provide value for them.
Right.
And it's an easy catch-all when you meet someone, like I mentioned at the event. It's really cool to say, oh, by the way, the second Tuesday of every month, here's where we're going to be. It's entrepreneurs, it's marketers, it's HR people, whatever it might be. Here's where I'd love to invite you.
Yeah.
Can I send you an email? And that gives you an excuse to follow up with them, as opposed to, well, I want them to be a client, but I can't follow up with a pitch.
That's great, because then you're almost getting the multiple touch points. How they say there's always the breakdowns of the 1 through 12 touches and the percentage, and we don't have to get into that. But everybody's seen those. But that's almost those touch points where you're maybe in a Zoom call with somebody. And do you see people kind of pair off after too, because you're on the Zoom call with maybe 8 to plus people? Do you see some of them actually just make one-on-one connections?
Yes. Every time there's at least one where someone, and where we leave it is, it's not having an entire conversation because we only have 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's just enough that's like, I need help with sales. Oh, my friend is a phenomenal salesperson. She can help you. That's where it ends. Then they follow up offline. But almost every time it's going to happen with multiple people. We're like, oh, I know someone you need to know. Right. I can help you with let's have a phone call offline. Because then when they follow up, they have a focal point. Yeah. Here's the problem you're facing. I think I can help you solve it. Let's get on the phone, as opposed to business synergies,
right,
where you don't really know what you're getting on the phone for. Yeah. Much less coffee.
Yeah, which is funny though too, because then it comes back even that specificity. To your point, what you just said, but you know exactly what those next steps are. Or if you're helping somebody, you have kind of your marching orders. I'm going to make an introduction between her and him, and specifically, this is what we're doing. Why we're connecting.
Yes.
And now you have that strong referral and it's hinged on very specific information.
Exactly.
And then obviously you have those multiple touch points, as you can always circle back with a email or a call or text or whatever it is. And did you have a good experience? Did you get those questions answered? And now, you're kind of down, you're kind of building that relationship around that. So
absolutely,
it really makes sense, because it's much more effective way to go about this. Instead of the sprawl of,
you can have coffee meetings all day long and not make any money.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. And that's why I said, I've sat in my car going, am I doing the right thing here? Am I don't know. And really kind of questioning it,
Yep.
And sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. But I guess, overall, that stuff you have to kind of analyze yourself too. So, because face-to-faces are the best way in sales.
Oh yeah. Well, when it comes to sales, definitely.
Yeah. So, but I really, do you think that the Zoom call on those environments, those virtual environments, do you feel like that's kind of I don't want to say the way of the future. I think it's, there's always going to be an element where people get together locally, but do you think, is that just kind of what's going to happen and evolve into the networking environment or mentorship environment, or
the Zoom calls?
Yeah, like the Zoom calls are just in general, like networking in general. Do you think that's going to become more relevant and open platform? As far as like the Zoom call networking. I mean, do you think more people are going to be more receptive to that than?
It's easier because there's no travel time.
Yeah,
it's easy to say I can get on even if it's an hour.
Okay,
and I'm going to meet 5 other people.
Yeah.
and I have to sit at home.
Right.
It's a completely different than like you sitting in the car. Am I going to the right thing? And you go into a networking event and there's average of them. Usually there's about 100 people.
Yeah.
And you have to meet, have 20 conversations. Hopefully you'll get 2 business cards as opposed to I can zoom in. I can zoom in from home.
Yeah. And there's a cost to the ticket. There's a cost for parking. I mean, it'd be silly, gas and everything. But I mean, and then could be
you don't
4
know
or
why
5
you're there.
hours of your time, and you don't know why you're there. So, because I really do like that, but like a virtual type of networking environment that was focused and facilitated, you could even do a couple of those a week, and it's not that intrusive. So I think that there really is something to that. I really like that idea a lot, and I'd actually like to build on that, or build on it with you. I love that. So, yeah. So is there anything else that, as far as things that you're working on that you'd like to share? Or?
Right now, it's the book and really bringing the idea climbing. This year in 2020, one of the things that I'm adding is the 1-day strategic session for privately held companies. Because with corporations, I get it that they have money, but there's no skin in the game. A privately held company, there's someone who's the bottom line is their pocket.
Yes.
If they do better, they immediately, not necessarily immediately, but they see the results, they get a huge benefit. As opposed to someone in a corporation, they're going to get the same paycheck regardless.
Right. I firmly agree with that. I've worked with both in my environment. And yeah, when you have, or if you have somebody at a corporate length's arm, they're out of state, there's a CFO or a decision maker, it's made on paper, it's not, to your point, skin in the game, and your, true emotion wrapped around it too. We don't try not to bring emotion into business.
But it's part of it.
But it's part of it. Yeah. You can't kind of help it. So that's great. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, I mean, I know you probably have multiple ways to reach out, but what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way is my website. It has all the links to my social media, my office line, my email address, and it's markjcarter.com.
Okay, markjcarter.com. Okay,
Yeah.
We'll have that in the links.
Everything's there.
All right, perfect. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on too? Or, is that?
I think we covered it.
Okay, cool. All right. I feel good about that. It was, besides my one complete brain fart, I completely, and what's funny is
I hate when that happens.
Oh man. It was my mind completely just shut. And you know what it was too, is I actually was able to ask the question too again. And it was built around, now I can't even remember what it was, but I think it was just built around that kind of mentorship idea. Oh, it was about omitting things. And that was because sometimes the masterminds or the mentorships too is it's